So in early December 2025, all eyes were on New Delhi. And when Vladimir Putin's plane touched down, you got to understand, this wasn't just the start of some two-day summit with Narendra Modi. Now, this was a huge signal to the rest of the world. So let's break down what made this meeting so incredibly important.
Yeah, this was no ordinary diplomatic trip, not by a long shot. It was a really calculated move, right? A direct challenge to all that Western pressure, and especially those U.S. tariffs on India because of its ties with Russia. It was basically a powerful declaration that this old partnership wasn't just surviving, it was actually being redefined for a new era.
All right, Section 1, a historic welcome. And, from the very moment Putin's plane landed on December 4th, the message was just crystal clear. This whole summit, it was about way more than just policy. It was deeply, deeply personal.
The symbolism here was just, wow, it was potent. I mean, think about it. Prime Minister Modi completely breaks protocol to greet Putin personally right there on the tarmac. Then, they carpooled together to the Prime Minister's residence for a private dinner, even before the official talks began. These weren't just formalities, They were really deliberate gestures, meant to show off this deep personal connection. And it didn't stop there. Modi gives Putin a Russian-language edition of the Bhagavad Gita, and Putin pays his respects at the memorial for Mahatma Gandhi. These are actions specifically designed to lock in that cultural and personal foundation of a partnership that's been going on for decades.
Okay, moving on. Forging economic and energy ties. Because beyond all the warm handshakes and photo ops, this summit was driven by some really tangible, really ambitious goals. And trust me, the real story here is in the numbers.
$100 billion. Just let that sink in. That's the headline figure, right? The brand new target for their annual trade by 2030. Now that's a staggering number for sure, but to really get what it means, we need to look at how they got to this point.
I mean, just look at this jump. We're talking from just $13 billion back in 2021 all the way up to nearly $70 billion by 2024. That is an absolute explosion. And it was fueled almost entirely by India buying massive amounts of Russian energy. So that explosive growth, well, that's the launchpad for this even more ambitious $100 billion goal.
But here's the thing, this isn't just an energy story anymore. The big goal now is to diversify, to balance out their trade. So, they're fast-tracking talks for a free trade agreement. Russia is getting ready to import a whole lot more Indian goods. We're talking everything from cars and electronics to pharmaceuticals. And, this is crucial, they're also starting to shift toward using their own national currencies for payments. Why? To build an economic partnership that's basically designed to be bulletproof against outside pressure.
And of course, energy is still the bedrock of this whole thing. This quote from Putin is just so powerful. He says Russia is ready to continue uninterrupted shipments of fuel for the fast-growing Indian economy. Now, that message was aimed just as much at Washington as it was at New Delhi. Think about it. India is facing U.S. tariffs over its Russian oil buys. So, Putin's pledge of uninterrupted fuel, that's a crystal-clear statement that Russia is going to be a steadfast energy partner no matter what.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. This summit went way beyond just the usual trade and diplomacy stuff. It also launched something totally fascinating and very modern, a strategic media alliance.
So, what are we talking about? We're talking about RT, or Russia Today. For anyone who might not know, it's a global media network and it's funded by the Russian state. Its whole mission is to offer a Russian perspective on what's happening in the world. Basically, it positions itself as an alternative to what the Kremlin calls the Western media monopoly. And check out the official tagline for RT's new Indian operation: not anti-Western, just not Western. It's clever, right? It perfectly captures what they're trying to do, frame global news from a totally non-Western viewpoint, reflecting the way an emerging multipolar world sees things.
And this wasn't some minor announcement. President Putin himself launched RT India during his visit. I mean, that tells you how strategically important this is. We're talking a brand new studio in Noida, a team of over 100 staff, and a bunch of new media packs signed with India's public broadcaster. This is a totally unprecedented level of media collaboration. And the stated goal is pretty clear: to build an alternative information platform and start shaping the global narrative from their shared perspective.
All right, Section 4, the roots of this resilient friendship. Because, to really get why all these new agreements matter so much, we have to look back. This partnership wasn't just built overnight. Nope, it has these incredibly deep historical roots that have survived decades and decades of global change.
This whole thing dates all the way back to 1955, forged right in the heart of the Cold War. It got really serious with that pivotal 1971 Friendship Treaty, which was a huge security guarantee for India at the time. And it's been kept alive by consistent diplomacy for over 70 years. So this 2025 summit, it's not just the 23rd one they've had, it also marks the 25th anniversary of the strategic partnership that was set up during Putin's very first visit back in 2000. All that long history has built a foundation of trust that, frankly, is pretty rare in global politics.
Okay, so that brings us right back to today in India's Global Balancing Act. This strengthened bond with Russia, you have to see it as a really crucial piece of India's much larger and honestly very delicate foreign policy puzzle.
And this quote from Prime Minister Modi, which he repeated during the summit, is really the key to understanding everything. He says, India is not neutral. India has a side, and that side is peace. It's such a carefully crafted stance, isn't it? It completely avoids taking sides, especially on the conflict in Ukraine, and instead positions India as this champion of dialogue and finding a peaceful way forward.
And this right here is the absolute heart of India's balancing act. It's like a tale of two partnerships. On one side, you've got that time-tested friendship with Russia. It's a cornerstone for defense, for energy security. But on the other side, you have this really vital and growing relationship with the United States, which is all about technology, trade, and strategic groups like the Quad. In fact, get this, India now does more joint military exercises with the US than with any other country on the planet. So, skillfully managing both of these critical partnerships, well, that's the central challenge, and it's the defining feature of India's independent foreign policy.
So, as this historic summit wrapped up, it really leaves us with a big, compelling question. In this increasingly complex, multipolar world we live in, can a historic friendship like this one actually become a blueprint for the future? Can this unique and resilient partnership between India and Russia be more than just a relic of the past and actually show us a new way forward in international relations? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this breakdown.